What's up, guys? I'm John.
My name is Chris.
And we are the Heck, and today we're checking out some freaking Overlord lore!
Oh, yeah.
And we're finally getting into a character that I think both of us absolutely freaking love.
Yeah.
Sebas.
Right from the drop, like, as soon as he started getting a little bit of his own screen time, we were like, this guy's rad.
Yeah, he's pretty badass. So I'm pretty stoked, man. This is apparently like Lord Touch Me's influence. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, dude.
Either way, homies, if y'all are new to our channel, smash that sub button. If y'all want to support our channel, there's a link to our Patreon in the description below. And yeah, let's freaking do this. Freaking boom! Sebas!
Our attention on the head butler of Nazarick and the commander of the
head butter.
Pleiades' sixth
Head
sister,
butter.
Sebas Chin. But I'm sure you already knew that. So let's do as we usually do and find out who exactly is Sebas, the Iron Butler, by looking at everything from his lore and creation.
The Iron
The
Butler.
Iron Butler.
Influences character. But first, before we get into the
Don't eye on
details,
your ass.
a lot of you ask in the comments where you can find a game like Overlord's Yggdrasil.
Ooh.
Coincidentally enough, I think I may have found one for you.
No way.
Cacao Games, the publishers of Black Desert Online, was kind enough to sponsor this video.
You son of
I
a...
honestly do feel that if you like Overlord, then Black Desert Online might be your cup of tea.
Wow.
I'm curious. How accurate is what he's saying right now, and how much is it also a sponsorship? You know what I mean?
True.
Because, dude, as a content creator, getting emails every single day. I bet you money right now in my spam folder, there's at least 20 emails from somebody that's like, oh, we're with Black Desert Online. You want to
Okay.
do it? And then they try to get you to download something, which I guess is like a Trojan horse type thing. I don't know. But either way, I've never actually played it. Have you ever played this game? If y'all have ever played it, let us know. If this is actually...
I've seen a lot of it, and it looks pretty good. I don't know about online, but I think there's a new one that's supposed to be coming out, and it looks really good. The newer Black Desert.
Well,
The
let us
combat
know,
looks
peeps.
it's a lot more action oriented instead of like MMO kind of doing things for you kind of
nice.
thing, you know.
Well, hit us with the comments. Let us know.
An immersive, action-packed MMORPG.
I mean,
that
he's
has
doing it.
One of the most in-depth.
Wait, I don't think we're
crafting
supposed to
systems
watch other...
a beautifully
I don't
designed
know.
Massive open world
Maybe
with
not, I
gorgeous
don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of like a weird gray area,
You
but
could
that does look kind of cool.
recreate
You can
cinema-
create a dude.
I think 10th editions and even
Okay.
pieces, and sports a crossbow as his main weapon and a variety.
This is a
of
long...
ranged
This is a
attacks.
really long freaking... Good God. Okay.
So you can
Ah! Okay.
the assistant
We made it.
butler,
Okay.
acclaimed
Ah.
butler, and his 10 manservants. By contrast, Pestonia S. Wanko is the head maid in charge
Wanko.
of the 41
Wango.
Presumably, Sebas' duties as head butler entail coordinating with the maids, specifically the head maid Pestonia, in scheduling and assigning the 52 plus underlings they have between them to ensure
Wow.
that the 9th and 10th floors of the
It's like a
guild
lot of
were
stuff,
well-kept
dude.
and
Make sure the
clean
food's
as
cooked,
Nazarick's
floors are
servants
vacuumed,
may.
and the beds are made.
But
Mhm.
after Pestonia was placed into confinement, Sebas took over what would have been her role in training Suare to become a proper duty maid of Nazarick. This
A duty
suggests
maid?
that there is enough overlap between his specialties as head butler and Pestonia's specialty as head maid, since he could train Suare to the exacting standards demanded of the homunculus maids of Nazarick. Now, I could go over all the tasks and responsibilities that the homunculus maids have, but I think I'll save that for a video dedicated to Nazarick itself. For now, I think
That's
it's
a cool
best
idea.
to just know that they were responsible for cleaning and maintaining the throne room, its connecting hallways, each individual room of the Supreme Ones, and the guest rooms, day in and day out. Although Sebas does
Dang.
help to oversee them, his primary duty is not to serve drinks or clean Nazarick. Remember, he is also the commander of the combat maids, and
Oh,
as
yeah.
such, is skilled at both combat and maid-like duties. When Sebas is in charge of the group, they're called the Pleiades 6 stars.
He'll beat your
derived
ass and
from
then
a
clean your
Right?
house.
Yeah. Yeah.
each representing one
soiled
of
the
the 6
sheets.
combat maids. Yuri Alpha is second in
Oh,
command,
shit.
and the
Well,
chain of command
alright,
after
Yuri.
that proceeds down the line by order of age and Greek letter. It goes Lupus Regina Beta, Nabril Gamma, Shizu Delta, Solution Epsilon, and finally Entoma Viscilla Zeta. As you
I
may
mean,
have heard
hell
before,
yeah.
Oriel Omega is the final sister and member of the Pleiades. When she's the one in command of the group, they're simply called the Pleiades 7 Sisters, named after the 7 daughters of the Greek Titan Atlas.
I wonder why they
We've seen very
don't
little of
really
in the
give
light
her
novels
any
so far,
love.
and all major
Yeah.
references of her were
That's
cut
kinda wild.
entirely from the anime.
Wonder
But
why.
I'm sure eventually
powerful.
Shinfor and I will get to
Right.
making a video on her too.
I think that's
In
a
any
pretty
case, the
good
sole
observation.
duty
I
of
think
the
she is
Pleiades
too
combat
powerful
maids
for the
back in
show to
Yggdrasil
really make
was to
sense.
serve as a final line of defense to buy Ainz and the surviving members of Ainz Ulgon time in order to gather and meet them in the throne room. As a group of level 60 or so NPCs and a single level 100 NPC,
Is that
they had no
Pleiades?
chance of
It's gotta
actually
be. I
stopping
think so.
any group of players
We gotta watch
who
this.
were capable
Yeah.
of breaching the defenses of all four of Nazarick. particularly one that could overcome these specialized defenses on the 8th floor. But as we've discussed earlier, the bulk of the guild NPCs in Nazarick were made for gimmick or roleplay purposes, and only a few levels were dedicated to NPCs who were actually intended to guard something. The combat maids were made with the excuse of being the last line of defense, but the real reason? It was probably because the guild members wanted an excuse to design some cute combat maids.
Yeah.
Let's be honest though, can you blame them? Now,
Not
before we
at
get sidetracked and
all.
start talking about
Right?
combat maids, we're here to talk about Sebas,
Just
not
ate
them.
somebody.
However, you know I can't do that yet because we first have to talk about his creator, Touch Me. If you remember
Lord
from my
Touch
Who is
Me.
Pandora's Actor video, Touch Me was the former leader of Ain's Ul Gon back when it was known as Nine's own goal. He was the one who brought the original guild together. What was not so thoroughly explained is why he acts the way that he does, as a shining example of a hero who helps others as if he's All Might.
Yeah.
You see,
Right.
Touch Me idolized the concept of a hero character, and valued virtues like righteousness, kindness, and honesty above all. His motto
It's
was
just
simple. The strong
Captain
should
America.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't a naive idealism either. Much like the paladin class archetype that he adopted, he believed in the fundamental importance of having the skills and strength to protect and enforce your moral
good
view
guy.
of the world. He was amazing at PvP, with reflexes and mechanics that could not be matched, and with this strength, he protected the fledgling members of Ain's Ul Gon from getting PK'd repeatedly, and built the guild into the global powerhouse that it would eventually become. He was by far the best PvPer in the guild, and
Oh,
among
wow.
the top in the
Dang.
entire server, winning one of the World Tournament Championships held once per year by the server, and earning himself access to one of the restricted and highly exclusive World Champion classes. Touch Me
Dang.
thus represents an
Paladin
interesting
of
duality
pure
that's
silver.
present in the
Right.
Superman archetype. He is both a being of great power, but also a being who voluntarily and wholeheartedly sought to use his strength for the benefit of others and not himself. Perhaps
is
it was
pretty
his
badass.
affinity for such tropes that led him to create the combat butler, Sebas Chan. Sebas is meant to be the archetype of all things butler, from his looks to his
All
personality,
things
Alfred.
Butler.
down to his name. Yes, when you put together his first and last name, you get Sebastian. It's a bit of a trope in anime and Japanese media in general that butlers are called Sebastian. The
wonder
most
why.
well-known example, and quite possibly the trope starter, would be Black Butler's titular
That's what I was gonna
character,
say.
Sebastian
Yeah.
Michaelis.
Ah.
But
Yeah.
just to reinforce the point
I
a
never
bit
saw
more,
that.
there's
You never
a
watched Black
Sebastian in
Butler?
Penguin
Oh, it's
Moves
so
of the
good.
Heart, Inukami,
Well, at least the
Five
first
Blind
season.
Hustle
I didn't
God,
see the second
Doki
season. I was
Doki
like,
Precure, as well as the video games Tekken, Suikoden 3, and Nier.
Good
Even
God.
parodies of this naming convention arose through shows like Lucky Star, where butler-type characters would be referred to as Sebastian, even though that wasn't their real
That's
name.
freaking wild.
But as
I wonder
you can
why.
work
I
out
wonder why
telling
that's the
these
name
images,
for butlers.
Butlers in Japanese media
Sebastian.
usually have some combination of gray hair, a mustache, a black
They all look the
and
same
a
too.
Yeah.
muscular build.
It
If
definitely
not all
feels
four at
like
once.
that's pretty
Sometimes
butlery.
the
Yeah.
butlers are merely stewards for their charge, though occasionally they are combat butlers, highly trained
Damn, he had
ex-military
a
special operatives,
wild
or mystic
stash.
warriors of
Yeah,
supernatural
dude.
power who are hired to protect their charge from murder and violence.
I
Not
think-
just
yeah.
serve them lunch or chaperone them around.
Not gonna lie, dude. I
Honestly,
think Sebas
the
might be
combat
my
butler
favorite of
trope
butlers.
is even more
He's
widespread
like,
than the Sebastian name
butler,
trope,
butler.
and
Yeah,
can be
he's a
found
really
across the
good one.
world. It actually stems from how the real-life British military used to work. So you know what that means. Let's briefly look into that with yet another AniNews history lesson.
Oh.
AniNews
The
history.
heyday of the British
Oh, God.
Empire, commissioned officers in the British military routinely came from extremely rich families. After all, they were commissioned by the government to do important work for the crown, and
does make
such
sense.
duties could only be given to trusted aristocrats from the ruling class, or so the logic went. As such, they would routinely be appointed soldiers to act as servants, or sometimes they would have their servants enlist as soldiers and be appointed to their command. It was so common, in fact, that the position of an officer's servant became permanent, and actually survived all the way to the mid-20th century
Oh, damn.
through World War II, even when the majority of officers stopped being royalty. In any
Huh.
case, these individuals
pretty
would
wild.
perform a variety of duties as both soldier and servant, including acting as a runner to relay orders, maintaining and cleaning their officer's uniform and equipment, acting as their personal bodyguard in combat, and so on. The position
awesome.
was usually seen as quite desirable and prestigious. This idea that butlers were frequently these badass, highly trained and competent ex-soldiers who
Dang.
enjoyed a friendly relationship with their master as a result of bonding during their military
What is that
career.
show?
became
I don't know,
a
I keep on
popular
wondering
subject
that too,
of
I'm not
stories
sure.
in fiction. Nowadays, most butler characters in fiction have an ex-military background of some sort. Prime example? Alfred Pennyworth.
Yeah.
Japan, as they usually
That's who I was
do,
thinking of.
took
He was
this
describing
trope
that.
and ran with it. In Western countries,
They've had some
the
really
butler
good
may be a
Alfreds out there
servant,
too, you
but
know.
they're usually portrayed as a trusted confidant and friend. Japan tends to emphasize the notions of servitude more, whereas the West has historically valued individualism, freedom, and self-reliance. In Japan, as in many Asian countries, shifts towards such things have been slower because their culture values different traits. It's still customarily expected for those in the serving industry to patiently accept whatever orders or verbal abuse they receive from those that they are serving. Similarly, employees at a business aren't supposed to complain to their boss or protest difficult working conditions.
It's weird how
Basically,
different our
Japan
cultures
still
are, dude. It
values
is kind of
traditional
wild in
notions
that
of
case.
servitude from a cultural perspective. A servant, after all, is not supposed to have opinions, expectations, ego, or emotions. They're supposed to devote their effort and energy to serving the whims and ego of their master. It's no surprise that the idea of maids and butlers took off in Japan, and we saw the rise of things like maid cafes.
Yes.
Of course, it's not
That's
because
wild.
everyone in Japan
Maid
is a
cafes?
heartless
Yeah.
monster or something, just because they don't like
Been to
Dude,
one?
no. So I was gonna say I've been 5 times to Japan at this point, and each 4 of the 5 times have been to go see a band called Band Maid, which is like their whole thing came from maid cafes. Like their lead guitarist, or not lead guitarist, but rhythm guitarist and founder of the band actually was like a maid at a maid cafe.
Oh wow.
And
makes sense.
also an idol and stuff like that. And that's how she got the idea for this band. And like I still haven't been to a maid cafe.
Damn.
Every time I've seen a lot of them, but I've never been in and actually experienced one. So I think this time I'm
You
probably
should
gonna
go
do
this
it.
time.
Yeah, maybe we'll see what happens. We'll
individualism
see what
and
happens.
freedom.
I'm good at it.
There's
We'll
obviously
try.
something innately and
I mean, you could go to a
intrinsically
butler
attractive
cafe, I
about
guess.
someone
Yeah.
trying to benefit your well-being
Either
and
one.
happiness because they
Meet the real life
genuinely enjoy doing
Sebastian.
so,
Yeah.
or at least they appear to.
I'll have
Like
another
a
water,
mother's love for their
Sebastian.
young child, servants
On
are
the
supposed
rocks,
to have such
please.
a willingness to sacrifice their own happiness, well-being, and ego for their master that it almost appears to be like love. People naturally enjoy being the subject of others' attention and concern. The combat butler trope adds
I
gap
do
worry
like to
on
be
top of
taken
this.
care of.
There's something even more compelling about a dutiful servant who will do anything you ask for them without complaint and devote their entire life for you. But they can also take on a squad of a dozen ninjas while simultaneously
That's what I'm
preparing
talking
a
about.
There's something cool
and
about that.
scheduling your day for you. Japan already had the concept of the Yamato Nadeshiko, the traditional Japanese ideal for a woman, one that was gentle, patient, and servile to the men in her family, but also possessing a steel wit, wisdom, and the conviction needed to assist them during their toughest times,
And could
not just
kill
be
you.
a pretty
Yes.
wallflower. Combat butlers and combat maids are just the same concept, but with a Western skin. Like I said, it's the Superman trope. Characters with great strength and competence who behave as if they were servants whose talents existed to help others. It was these kinds of characters that Touch Me liked the best.
Touch
most
Me!
likely leading to Sebas.
That name
who
is
I'm sure I'll
amazing.
return to talking about specifically really soon. Though all of what I've just said about combat butlers basically applies to Sebas as well. He's not exactly an ex-soldier, but he is a badass warrior, so close enough. It's never really explained why Touch Me liked combat butlers specifically, though we can infer that it was attributed to being a fan of the hero-servant concept. But honestly, it doesn't even need to be that complicated. You have to keep in mind that Nazarik's Supreme Ones, back when they played Yggdrasil, were for the most part gamers and otaku, in addition to being working-class adults. People like Ulbert Elaine Odell or Tabula Smaragdina, who were interested in the occult and Western mythology, were the exception, rather than the rule. For the most part, members of Ainz Ul Gon were influenced by anime tropes and Japanese culture, and they created things that reflected those influences, whether it be maids, traps, cute girls, or, in Touch's case, combat butlers. He didn't necessarily give him a fancy backstory, a unique name, or a complex personality, because of course not all people are interested in making complex, fully fledged characters. As a matter of
makes
fact,
sense.
apparently even his general facial features were modeled after his own appearance in real life.
Oh, dang, that's
Simply,
cool.
He wanted to make something that would look like, act like, and think like an ordinary run-of-the-mill combat butler trope, serving his master faithfully and dutifully with a stern but gentle expression on his face.
Stern
Why?
but gentle.
Well, just like the reasons for many of the other NPC creations. It's because he thought it was cool. Really. You can see these same themes shared across the entirety of Nazarick. They're all rocking that
pretty much.
combat servant theme.
Yeah.
Generally, fiction writers tend to write what you know, in the sense that they write the best when they're writing about what they're most interested in or speaking from personal experience or first-hand knowledge. The author of Overlord, Maruyama, wanted to write a story with Gap Moe, combat maids, creepy monsters, and yandere succube. But rather than try and shoehorn in a lame excuse for all these things to appear in the story, he created a complex cast of characters who are otaku, and had the justification be that they liked these things and they wrote it in their own story.
I love
It's
that.
a
I think
really
that's such a
clever
cool,
way
like,
to
complex
lampshade
way
the
of doing
trope
that.
by openly acknowledging that half your characters were made specifically to be pandering to otaku fetish material. Okay, but seriously, let's talk about Sebas now. I didn't want to bore you about things you
Shit.
probably already
It's
knew.
finally
Like what kind of character Sebas
What do they
was.
call that? The
He's
weave?
as
They call it the weave?
stereotypical
Oh,
of a
yeah.
combat
Weaving?
butler as they come. I figure it'd be more interesting to explain why he was written that way.
Okay,
Both from the
makes
perspective
sense.
of Touch Me, who created the character, and also from the author of the book. So let's talk about the aspects of Sebas' character that are a bit more subtle and a bit more interesting. Namely, the conflict that Sebas has between his nature as a servant of Nazarick and his nature as the creation of Touch Me.
See, I think that's always
Sebas,
been something
like
I'm
all
really
creations
curious
of
about.
Nazarick,
Yeah.
is a loyal servant who sees himself as having no other purpose in life than to do his creator's every bidding. But
Do my
Sebas,
bidding,
like all other
child.
creations of Nazarick, adopts the personality of his creator in ways that aren't strongly defined in his lore, backstory, or game mechanics. Most of the denizens of Nazarick are evil aligned, and they view other creatures with, at best, complete apathy, and at worst, abject loathing and hatred. Though
Yeah.
a select few have a more neutral
And it
or
has like a
pragmatic
bipedal
outlook.
farm, you know?
Sebas is one of
Yeah.
the few Nazarick denizens who are known or strongly implied to be good aligned. Alongside Yuri Alpha,
That's
Bastonia,
another
and
reason we
Negredo.
like Sebas so
In
much.
fact,
Yeah.
he has the highest karma rating of any known denizen at 300.
Wow.
Okay,
Good
hell yeah.
aligned karma rating typically indicates someone who will feel morally obligated to go out of their way to help innocents or strangers.
Which
and who
makes sense
find
for that
evil
whole
acts
series,
distasteful.
dude.
Sebas actually takes this a step further, adopting the full lawful good archetype of the paladin his creator played as. Meaning, not only should the strong protect the weak, the strong should also punish and destroy evil, as he swiftly demonstrates during his ruthless purge of the Six Fingers. To Sebas,
Purged 'em.
the
That was an
conduct
awesome
of many
episode.
of
Yeah.
these individuals, such as Constable Stefan, marked them as no better than animals
Constable
or insects,
Stefan.
and thus deserving of
Stefan!
the same treatment as a rabid dog. Others, like the guards of the brothel or the Six Arms members, were complicit in those acts, and thus just as morally culpable. But more importantly, he found their hubris and self-confidence in suffering.
Goodeish.
It's as if he
That's
expects those
just-
with genuine
look
power
how
to
he slapped
imitate
him,
the
too.
same kind of humility and grace that he does, and that his creator seemed to idolize.
I feel like that's one of that whole series was one where like we were constantly on our toes, like, oh, these guys are gonna be badass. Are these guys gonna be the ones? Like
Yeah.
constantly about the entire show. But I feel like that was kind of for me the tipping point where I realized like, okay, I don't think there's anybody that can really stand before them.
Yeah.
And then from then on out, it was just like everything was fun because like people were scheming and plotting, and we knew it was for nothing.
yeah.
But yeah,
Is probably why he becomes good acquaintances with Climb and Brain. Ironically,
that makes
Sebas'
sense.
righteous indignation and outright hatred for criminals and other scumbags, whom he views as literally inhuman, makes him surprisingly similar to the evil Nazarick denizens, in a sense. They too see those outside of Nazarick as fundamentally lesser creatures that do not deserve their lives, though the evil Nazarick NPCs are much less selective about who actually deserves what. That's not to
Makes
say
sense,
that
dude.
they think everyone is beneath them. Regardless of karma rating, level, race, or position, a Nazarick denizen understands that their only job is to serve the edicts of the Supreme Ones, and that they are each deserving of a fundamental level of respect as fellow creations. For to disrespect a creation can be seen as a slight against their creator. Fundamentally speaking, the Supreme Ones exist at the top as the gods and rulers, with the NPCs at the bottom as their loyal servants and creations, and everything else that isn't from Nazarick aren't even on the scale. Nazarick servants
Yeah,
share an
they're just
affinity
nothing.
with each other,
Yeah,
and
pretty
view
much.
each other roughly as equals regardless of their position. After all, to think that one particular creation is fundamentally superior to another is to, in a sense, belittle one of the creators. Even Eclair, who seems to be made for the express purpose of being incompetent in every conceivable way, is not fundamentally a lesser creature because of this, though sometimes other NPCs do find it difficult to treat him with all due respect.
I can't wait to
Even
find out
if
more
two
about Shout's
creations
here as
would
well, man.
otherwise hate each other, both good and evil NPCs can cooperate to serve the Supreme Ones. For example, though Sebas can barely stand Demiurge's personality, he ultimately respects the fact that he can contribute to the glory of Ainz Oogong.
I guess that makes
Aside
sense,
from
yeah.
uniting around their shared identity as fellow creations, Some are even compelled by their specific lore settings or personal background to maintain relationships that may be contrary to their moral code. Look at Yuri Alpha. Though she finds the behavior of some of her more evil and sadistic sisters to be disappointing and exasperating, she still loves them, as they were all
Look
written
at the
to
like
enjoy
fried
a healthy
hand
and
over there, the
respectful
fried arm that she's
relationship.
eating.
yeah.
Still, there are a
Jeez.
few exceptions to this rule, such as Shaltir and Albedos or Demiurge and Sebas. No, the two of them don't actually fight, but they do regularly take low-key jabs at each other, and interact
yeah.
sarcastically and passive-aggressively sometimes. Part of the reason behind the conflict between Sebas and Demiurge is rooted in the conflict between their creators. After all, servants strongly take after their creators, both in the
didn't
things
know
they
that they
like
had-
and the things they can't stand. You'll recall that Touch Me was the kind of person who valued justice and righteousness.
Yeah,
This
that makes
frequently
sense.
put
Yeah.
him in conflict with Ulbert Elaine Odin,
Yeah.
the creator of
They're always
Demiurge,
bashing.
who was obsessed
Yeah.
with role-playing as a
clashing
villain.
heads.
The stark contrast between their personalities was part of the reason why Touch Me ultimately stepped down as the guild leader and appointed Momonga in his place.
See, I feel like that would be some stuff that I would like to know as well too, like the lore of the actual creators. I would love to know more about
Yeah.
that, but I don't know if he's done that or not.
I guess it seemed like Ainz had more of like a middle ground approach to everything instead of like defined one way or the other.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
He was like all good, and
Yeah.
then like the
Other dude was like
Olbert
all
guy
bad.
was all bad.
Yeah,
all the way
yeah,
bad.
yeah,
I guess Ainz was kind of in the middle, maybe.
yeah.
Two
I like
had
that.
argued so often and so emotionally that one of the founding members of Nine's own goal actually left the guild as a result. And there was this lingering sense of bad blood
Dang.
between the two of them that lasted for quite some time. Quite unlike the paladin class archetype that he played as, he wasn't a blind zealot, and was capable of recognizing and acknowledging how his personality and actions had led to this conflict and had caused some of the very suffering that he wished to eradicate in the rest of the guild members.
Oh damn.
In any case, good-natured Nazarick servants still sometimes find faithful, diligent service to the Supreme Ones to be quite difficult to square with their sense of morality. Sebas found himself unable to resist saving Soiree during the events of Season 2,
Yeah.
despite knowing in the back
God,
of his
she
mind
makes sense.
that she
massively
was a
beat up
potential
right
there.
risk and liability that could jeopardize his mission. He even took steps to conceal her existence by refusing to mention her as part of his regularly scheduled reports. He believed he would have been told to abandon her where he found her.
Well, it's cool
and
that he
just
actually
couldn't
brought her
bring
in. Now
himself
she's
to do
part
that.
of them.
Deep down, he knew what he was doing could be seen as a potential betrayal that could put his mission at risk. But as soon as it
They
became
thought
clear
that
that
too
the
for a
worst
while.
case scenario might come to pass, he decided almost immediately to accept the risks and consequences with the conviction to resolve any problems that arose, up to and including executing Soiree on command.
Jesus.
His greatest fear when being confronted by Ainz in Season 2 was not that Soiree would be killed, but that he might be executed immediately upon presenting himself to Ainz, and forever be branded as this traitor to Nazarick long after he had passed.
Dang.
Nazarick denizens value loyalty to their creators and the Supreme Ones above all else. Sure, they'll find ways to do what they want if it still allows them to accomplish the orders that they've been given,
Good
and
God.
some of them may indulge in some willful delusion to do so. But betrayal is fundamentally only possible in the context of magical compulsion, such as in the case with Shaltir. Anyway, that's pretty much everything I've got on Sebas lore-wise, and then some. Next time will be on how strong he is.
Sheesh.
Until then, thank you so much for watching.
I'm
and
curious to
thank you
know like
to
how
TIAN
strong
for
he
sponsoring
actually is in the actual anime, like stats wise. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
like
'Cause we've seen
who he
like what he
compares
can
to in a way,
do,
yeah.
but we don't know like stats wise how strong he is. And he did kind of show a little bit, but he didn't really talk about it in this episode yet. But dude, he's one of my favorite characters in Overlord. Like
Yeah.
him and Cocytus, like
Cocytus was
he's
rad.
probably my favorite non like main character in the show.
Yeah.
And but I really like both of their styles, and I think that they reflect a lot of their creators. I think it's pretty awesome, dude. Pretty freaking cool. And also, we recently watched the first Overlord movie. We're gonna watch the second one very soon as well too. And if you guys want to watch that movie with us, we'll be posting parts of it on YouTube. I don't know how much we can post on YouTube.
Yeah.
But we'll be posting the entire reaction up on our Patreon. If you guys want to check that out, there's a link to our Patreon in the description below. But I have a question. This is going to be like a really random one, and it's probably going to put a lot of people off. But I still have to ask this, okay? We got to do this.
Okay.
So looking at the mates, okay? And just, I got to go to this one picture, right? Well, first we can go to this one. If you don't want to be somewhat I don't know. I don't know if this is insulting to anybody. I don't know what we're going to talk about either way. Here we go. Boom. Okay, so first one. Looking at it here, okay? So every single one of the maids, everybody is busty in this show. Everybody is busty in this show.
Yeah.
And by everybody, I mean literally freaking, even the freaking penguin.
Eclair.
Even the penguin. But no, like, there was a picture here, like, dude, they kept on showing, even the dog. Even, I can't remember what her name is. Estonia?
Pestonia.
Pestonia?
Yeah.
I would be so easily distracted. It's like constantly everything there has boobs. And I'd be like, the whole time. I don't know, dude. It's not like it's something I want to do, but it's something I would involuntarily
Like, if something's
just be like,
moving right in front of you like that, it's hard not to, like, look at it.
yeah,
Like, your
dude,
eyes are
jiggle
just drawn.
effects.
Yeah,
Just
jiggle
constant,
effects.
dude.
Like, I think that it's, like, hypnotic.
It
in a way.
is. It is.
That's
So-
the reason jiggle effects were created,
Yeah,
to
dude.
hypnotize people.
Hypnotize me. So either way, that's all I just noticed. I was like, man, every single thing here is busty. I would get too distracted. I'd die easily in Nezarec. Oh yeah, I'd die easily there.
Yeah. I mean, I was, like, thinking about what kind of character I would make, you know? Because, like, you could do that if you're playing Yggdrasil. You could make your own NPCs. And I was like, yeah, it would probably be something like an assassin, like, maid kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
Not necessarily a maid. I've never really liked the idea of having a maid or anything. But, like, an assassin, like, secretary, like, freaking Xion from Slime.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, there you go.
I think female assassins are better than male assassins.
Yeah, because they can kind of, like, tempt you a little bit and then slice your throat.
Yeah, it's so unsuspecting. Like, people don't suspect them to be, like, badass or anything, really. And it's just like, psych, and you're done.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even see it coming.
Right?
The best
Either way,
assassins.
let us know what y'all think in the comments below. But I just had to say that. Would you be easily distracted? Did you notice everything's busty in here? I mean, obviously you did. You had to. You had to have known.
I mean, yeah, you have to know. Like,
I know. Either way, you're. Yeah, I don't know. Y'all be good, homies, and we'll talk to y'all later. Freaking toodles.
Later.
Bye.